Hi.
Hi there.
Well, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you
Evening.
all are.
Yeah. Evening. So
Linda.
you won't be surprised when I'm allowed half a glass of wine a night. So I'm going to be sipping this throughout.
Oh, you're ahead of me. I've chosen to do a little dry run for a while, so I'm just drinking water, but that's okay. Just
Not
says,
a girl. Yeah, water. Water's become a big thing. I try to do the 8 glasses a day, but wow, I mean,
yes. Honestly, I lost count, which is why I had to go get this really big cup just to make sure if I have about 2 or 3 of these, that I'm good.
not a girl. Not a girl. Maintaining maintenance.
So Linda, thank you so much to anyone who's watching. My honorable guest today is Linda Purl, and she is a most notable singer and actress, and has been on many shows, including one of my personal favorites was Happy Days.
Okay.
But of course, you have so much to your credit, and you continue, to add to your IMDb, which is absolutely incredible. And I think we were talking about this before, and one of the things that you were on, you've always been able to continue in a very difficult industry.
Yeah, it's weird. I feel very grateful for that. My career has been very much. I'm sorry. I'm wearing like how many? 1, 2, 3. I'm in London. I've been here a week, and I'm just not having that on. But I don't think I've been warm since I got here. I love being here. It's great. But coming from California, thin blood. So
Right.
anyway, but so that's
Right.
why I'm all cuddled up here. My career it never went sort of one big, hit or anything. It's just been sort of journeyman. But I think in looking at the arc now, I think I'm very, very grateful for it, because I've been able to work in my 20s and 30s and 40s, 50s, and now 60s. So, yeah.
And consistent, which is really great. Especially, we hear about, challenges for women in terms of equality, and then,
Oh,
of course, in your industry as we get older as well. Though you and I were talking that age is non-existence right now. It's just some parts of our body may not cooperate, but that has nothing to do with us, right?
yeah. I mean, aging is so I'm going to go back to the thing about consistently, but believe me, there have been times when I haven't been working, and that's been really challenging. There was a wonderful character actress I worked with as a young woman a couple of times, and I guess I was 18, 19 when I met Lucille Benson. I think she's long gone, but she came to her career later in life. And there was a period of time where you could not go to see a feature, but what Lucille wasn't the eccentric auntie or the favorite nanny or grandma on the back of the motorcycle, so when I got to work with her, it was such a joy. And I said to her at some point, "Oh, Lucille, I want to be just like you when I grow up." And she said, she dropped down into serious for a moment. She said, "No, you don't. Don't get caught like I did, sitting in a rocking chair all by yourself, hugging a script." And that was just one of those moments that was branded into my brain. It was like, oh, right. Have a career, but have a life. And have a family, if you want, because you can sort of forget to do that, especially a woman of my age, because the feminist movement was kind of getting underway, and it was just coming out of that notion that you should only work and not get married and not have your kids. So I was very grateful for that sort of life correction that she gave me.
That's
to
incredible.
Try to have it all. I mean, yes, of course, have your ambition, have your career, but have your life. It's a fickle career. I mean, my industry is incredibly fickle. So anyway, I digress. Carry on.
So the name of the show is called Inspiring Change, and I know again, I'm so honored. You actually asked me if you could be part of it, and you messaged me, and I went, oh
Yeah.
my goodness, sure,
Well, we
absolutely.
were on that fun group Zoom talking about another, comedy series or whatever, and I was so intrigued by by you, by your questions. You're just gorgeous, and also this show, and especially now because it's a hard time for so many people for myriad reasons, COVID notwithstanding. So, inspiration is something that I seek on a daily basis. And so, anyway, I was flattered to be asked and glad to be here.
Exactly. And that's the whole thing too. I mean, I don't know about you. I try to avoid the news and anything to do with negativity that doesn't add a positive influence to my life, just because
Mm,
that's, I believe that that's where your energy goes, if that's where your focus goes. So I would much rather change the narrative in terms of inspiring change and
mhm,
creating that community where we can help inspire and support other people.
mhm,
And that is actually a great segue to your Instagram, because you have, well, I guess it's a not so new love, but you have a new love that
mhm,
was kind of a longtime friend, which again, that is very inspiring to me because, being a single woman in the pandemic, it can certainly be a little challenging meeting somebody. So, one, that gave me hope.
mhm.
Number two, just how you were able to keep it fun and light on your Instagram with your partner was just so much fun.
Well, I think it is a choice. I've been really, lucky in life to have worked with, met, studied with some extraordinary people, and there was a woman that I was sort of became like a Auntie Mame for me in my 20s, and just a great gal, athlete, artist, and very independent. And she used to say, "Oh, honey, carry the expectancy of good around in your head like a merry tune." And it's just one of those catchphrases. It's like, oh yeah, remind yourself to do that. Another one of my teachers, Bill Landrum, dance teacher, lifelong mentor, colleague, often says, change the energy. And he one of the examples that he gave was of a friends of his, husband and wife, and he liked to run, and she would sort of run to be with him, and help him train for his marathons or whatever. And at some point they were running, and she was saying, "Ah, this is such a drag." And he said to her, "Change the character." Change the energy, change the character. So don't be that person. Don't invest in that person. This is so hard. And so then she just, in the moment, she imagined herself that she was the Russian astronaut and she was training because she was going to be sent to the moon, soon, and she needed the cardio, and no problem. Yeah, I mean, it was a make believe, it was a playful moment, but kind of a nice little tool to have in your back pocket. It's like, no, just change the energy. So, yeah, I think one of the things that you might be referring to is Patrick and I went up to Vancouver, thrilled to do a movie up there. But at that point, last spring, I guess it was, you step off the plane, they shove the thing up your nose, and they say, "Welcome to Canada. Go to your room for 2 weeks." And we were in this sealed room for 2 weeks. Literally, we were not allowed to step foot out the door of our room. They would deliver your food, and we did have a balcony, so that was a lifesaver. But it could be like, oh my gosh. I mean, I love to walk. I love the outdoors. The outdoors is a big part of my life every day. And so we just, I don't know, we tacitly, I suppose, just decided that it was going to be fun. And not only was it fun, it was hysterical. So, I mean, I realize that is not always possible. It was a very nice hotel. We had work to look forward to. So we had things that helped us make that. But we went into it with a little bit fearful because we've all had friends that have been in isolation for or quarantine for a couple of weeks, and they've been climbing the walls.
Mm.
And anyway, it's a silly sort of first world example of being able to, it's not as though we were in a refugee camp in Syria in the
Right.
winter.
Right.
Come on.
Always looking at the positive, of course. And let's not gloss over who your love is, because some fans may know your partner is actually Patrick Duffy of one of my favorite shows that I used to watch with my mom.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, he's on many shows, of course, but one of the most notables would be Dallas, correct?
For sure.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So we love you, Patrick, but today this is all about Linda.
Hey.
Yeah, so it brings me back to, again, you've been on, I believe you were on Matlock, you were the daughter, right? And you were on so many other notable shows as well. But what stuck out for me was, again, I'm going to go back to Happy Days. I'm not trying to typecast you there, but for me, I think I'd shared with you that I used to watch the show with my mom all the time when I was a little girl. And, the 70s and the 80s were totally different time. And, my mom was a single mom. So for me, watching you as a mom struggle and the different challenges that you had to go through, you as a single mom, your character, of course, as a single mom going through that and then navigating, for me, there wasn't really much of that on TV. So, it was just that, pardon?
That's interesting. Yeah. I never thought of that, but yeah.
Yeah, that stuck out for me. And the other thing as well, I'm a little bit biased because my middle name is Purl, so your last name is Purl.
No kidding. P-E-A-R-L? P-U-R-L?
Well, it's a different spelling, but
Okay.
again, it's so unique. So,
Yeah.
whatever bonds us. But I'd like to talk about, in terms of what the show is about, in terms of inspiring change, taking adversity and turning it into opportunity. And when you and I discussed that before the show, you were talking about different elements of breath. And what really was intriguing to me was when things fall apart. When things fall apart, and then you kind of gave that a theme.
I wish I could say that was an original phrase. I think was it Anne Lamott who wrote the book When Things Fall Apart? I think that's but it's such a tight phrase. I'm borrowing it, and things have fallen apart for me a couple of times in life. I think at this stage, I'm 66. One of the most surprising things is just how many chapters there are. I mean, I think for such a long time thought, well, you're born, you have your childhood, you grow up, and then you're old for a little bit, and then you're dead. But it's that has not been my life. Maybe part of it is being in the theater and television. It is a gypsy life, so there's a lot of moving. I mean, now I'm on the road. Patrick and I are both on the road together for 6 months, so there's a lot of tectonic plate shifts in, I suspect, most people's lives, in the chapters of a marriage, even if you're living in the same village all of your life. I mean, things change, we grow, we get new perspectives. But yeah, things. So I would say the first time that things seriously fell apart for me was when my then husband's and my son was 3, and our marriage just crumbled. Wonderful man, but it just crumbled, and I found myself where I least expected to be, which was I was living on the wrong coast where I had not a hope of making a living. I had sold my house to move to anyway, I was like, oh my gosh, it's going to be up to me to financially be totally responsible for our son. And I've got to figure it out. So it was, the first time I realized I was in real trouble was when, after 20 minutes of trying, I had not been able to load the dishwasher. So, I was very lucky. I had 2 very dear, angelic, stalwart, sterling friends who swooped in. And, it was, just to sort of give a window into the dark side for a moment. at first it was, let me just make it through the next hour. No minute, no second. I was pretty much catatonic for 3 weeks. I could kind of fake it for a little bit in front of my son. Of course, I didn't want, that was the thing, was to protect him. So I'd basically fallen through the floorboards, and my friends helped me. They played with my son. They cooked the meals. It was just, I lived in panic attack mode. Anyway, it's awful. I wouldn't wish it on anyone. And with the love and support and patience, and somewhere in there, I started to find my bootstraps and could make a decision of what we were going to have for dinner, and then could set up a play date for my son, or be with my son, or read him a bedtime story. And just little pieces of normalcy started to come back. I moved back to Los Angeles, found a place to live. We got the, anyway, and I just rebuilt from what felt like nothing. And it was a dark place I didn't know existed. There were so many gifts that came out of that. One was empathy. I mean, until you've seen it, this is true for me anyway, unless I'd seen it, I wouldn't have known that place can exist. So, and also that it's a place you can come back from, and you can, not overnight, And so then I thought, well, I have to find something, some kind of regular business, which acting is not, that will provide me an income that will just cover the basics, so that I can cover the mortgage and I can get a bowl of pasta on the table and, gas in the car to get my son to school and cover his education. So it was funny because a girlfriend who lived next door now back in California, also an actress, and we thought, okay, we're gonna sit down. We had actually known each other since 3rd grade. We're now grown-ups. Our sons are the same age. And we sat down and we're going to have coffee, and we have our yellow pads, we have our sharpened pencils. And because we knew each other so well, we were going to tell each other what our strengths were. And based on that, we could, with the objective view, we could maybe build a business together. It was like, well, can you do accounting? No. Can you type? No. Can you bake? Not really. I mean, and it was crushing, because there was nothing for these pages and pages of talents that we thought we could fill about things. We were only lousy actresses. We couldn't. But in fact, necessity being the mother of invention, I did have something. I started an international theater festival that went on for 8 years. And it, in fact, not overnight, but it ultimately did provide that base income. And then I would work now and then. So, which, helped fill things in. But what I started with was, what do I care about? What's important? What's my passion? What do I actually know? I grew up overseas, so I had a global perspective. I was middle-aged at that point, 40 something, 2, 3, 4. So I thought, I have a roster of friends around the world. I had worked at a theater festival back east for 6 years. So these pieces, I cared about global relations, about global communication. And so anyway, it developed into an international theater festival.
Congratulations.
Hugely rewarding, very, very rewarding. And ultimately we fell apart, but we had a go of it for 8 years. And it was a gorgeous learning curve for me. The friends that were developed out of there, the cross-cultural connections that came about for it, not only for me, but for the attendees, the apprentice program. But it started from something authentic. So it started from a kind of, inspiration. And I would put my second to last bottom dollar on the notion that everyone has an authentic passion inside of them, even to be found in the darkest hour, that can turn into a beautiful peony, that can evolve. I know everyone has something to offer on this planet that can be helpful or inspiring or educational or whatever to somebody else. It doesn't matter
Exactly.
what it is. So, I
So
mean, sort of,
everybody listening right now, that is going to be the key takeaway. That's a nugget right there that Linda just said. So whoever is facing anything in life, just know that there's hope. And I think what I got from that, Linda, as well, is, especially for women, I mean, I can speak as one and,
mhm,
and a mother, that when you have a purpose and when you're down, but give yourself permission to be down, because that's not a failure in anything. We always try to be superwoman. We always try to be all things to everybody. And when something as traumatic as that, as when a relationship that we wanted forever, because that's what we're sold on, when that falls apart, and then we have a child or children looking at us, if we're blessed with that, it feels like a failure. It feels like we've not only let ourselves down, but our child down, to
mhm,
put, that there are broken pieces.
mhm,
But also what I've learned from that is it's okay. We need to give ourselves permission to feel that absolute lowest, because like you said, you had to count on others, which you probably didn't really have to do before. You were probably very self-reliant and
mhm,
I can do this. And it probably stretched a new muscle for you to rely on other people, and then to really dig deep down and find your authentic why
mhm, mhm,
on something, to reignite a passion, would you say?
mhm. Reignite, sort of pull passions together, make sense of them, and grow them to the next level. It was not something I had ever intended to do. And frankly, if I knew how hard it was going to be, I'm not sure I would have jumped into it. Now I'm getting hot. But
What would you
so
tell yourself?
what?
What you know now, what would you tell your younger self?
Oh, well, take the next step. Just take the next step, no matter how small. And I know one of the things we had mentioned before was breath. Breath has become so crucial to me. Literally, the physical thing of just taking a deep breath. There's all sorts of science about which I know nothing, but enough to know that it actually resets your nervous system, right? I mean, just to stand in a room and envision the breath going down through your body, grounding your feet, and then releasing that energy. It actually can change your perspective. Take a nap, eat an apple, something to just, again, change the energy. But breath is, I don't know. I roll around on the floor a lot in the morning, sort of, yoga and stretch, that kind of thing. And especially after jet lag coming here, it's like, oh, you're kidding. Ow, ow, ow. But then if I breathe into the moment, or take a breath and then move on the breath, it's different. And there's a kind of freedom that, that will come in. And release me to a new level. Yeah.
It's so true how important breath is. I'll catch myself if I'm in a very stressful situation, and I'll
Mhm.
hold my breath. I forget to breathe. It's almost like I
Oh, yeah,
forget
we
to
all do.
breathe.
We all forget to breathe. Yeah. So here's an idea that just kind it's probably an obvious idea, but I somehow, how you'll sort of have an inspiration. It's like it's a penetrating glimpse into the obvious, but it sort of becomes your new go-to. So space is sort of a new idea, concept that I've been working with in prayer and meditation, which is the space between the trigger point and the response. So let's say, someone, I don't know, stupid example, cuts you off in traffic, and it's like, "Urgh." So the trigger and the response, at least for me, feels like it's all at the same time, right? Like, oh, I really want that piece of chocolate cake. And I get the cake all in the same moment, right? Whatever the trigger and the response is. So, but I'm starting to see now that they are in fact two separate events, right? Just like breath is all breath, but it's not. There's the inhale, and then at the top, there's that moment before you exhale, or vice versa. So there's space where I have not perceived space to be before, or even movement. I make the decision to get up and move somewhere, but there is that moment where you think it, and then your body sort of pulls the muscles. I mean, it's a fraction of a second. We do it automatically all day long, breathing too. But that's another place where there's space to sort of just gain consciousness. So with the trigger and the response, for me, so let's say you've been triggered to have the piece of chocolate cake or something. But if I can find that millisecond, that hair's breadth of time before I then take the reaction, there's actually a universe in there. And the reason this came to me was my son was recently, over the holidays, he was halfway around the world for me. And I had word that he was having a massive and a very dangerous allergic reaction. To what? We don't know. He's fine now. He's perfectly fine. But in the moment, it was terrifying. And I go right away to the worst possible thing. You Google it and you go, yeah, it could be anything from a flea bite to leukemia and everything in between. So there was the trigger, and believe me, there was the response. There was the mama bear on steroids and, trying to call, but in fact, I couldn't do anything. I couldn't jump in the car and run to the hospital. I couldn't, there was no sense being on the plane because I didn't want to be midair in case I had to medevac him back to LA. So suddenly there was this space of, okay, what do I do? The only thing I could do is drop to my knees in prayer. And not a prayer petition, like for me anyway, no, please, keep him safe. It was, wait a minute, I have to know what I know to be true, which is that, get a hold of some rational thought, really just deal with the cold, hard facts and not let my mind run away to what could be the worst case scenario. And so deal with rational thought was the first thing. And then just to really go as deep or as high as I possibly can in terms of my own spiritual belief. Such an individual journey for everyone. So, but for me, it was to know that God was in charge, that God was good, and that there could be a healing here for my son and for mom, But I had to find that space, that sort of quantum neutral zone where I wasn't being triggered and I wasn't responding. So that's become, I think it's a place I've always gone to in trouble, but it hadn't articulated itself in my thought. And I'm really looking forward to journeying more into that sacred space where
That's
we're
very,
not
yeah.
caught up in a response, of course we're going to respond, but what response is going to be empowering rather than damaging?
Exactly.
In a crisis, frankly.
Mm-hmm. That's very profound, in things. I have 3 children, and
wow.
I have 3,
Yeah.
and my eldest is 25 right now. And as he's trying to navigate, through different things now of adulting, now they all get it. They're like, now we can see why you told us not to rush growing up, Mom. Yeah, but as they go through that, I say, you always forever and a day have Mama Bear, but now your strength comes in your own story and your own journeys. That it's really important for you now to come out of Mama's wings and, the whole time you were the cocoon and I was, protecting you with my wings, but now it's time for you to go out and do your own journeys. And all I ask is that you find something to believe in. We all grew up with a Christian background as well, very spiritual, but, there's also, the teachings of Buddha and through the yoga and all those different things. So I like to explore energy in
Mhm.
spiritualism, and less on the religion part of it, but more spiritual, how it makes me feel.
Mhm.
But I digress. So what I told them was, it's very personal. It's that journey is a very personal journey, and I can show the way for you, but it's so important that you have your own relationships.
Mhm.
So when you have that biggest time of challenge and adversity, that, like you said, Linda, that you can just stop and breathe for yourself, and take that moment and trigger yourself, jolt yourself out of whatever it is that you're feeling, and take control, take direction. And
Yeah,
what's that
and
saying?
I think go ahead, sorry.
Sorry, and
Mhm.
what's that saying that we hear? Our reaction, or our reaction to what we're being told, we're in control of that.
Mhm.
We're in control of how we react to something.
Hard to do. It's really hard to do. There was a this is a long time ago, and I, spent a month or so in the Himalayas and was climbing and had a Sherpa, uh, and we would so had we would the morning would start, we would break camp and all that, and then I was ready to go, but Kami Sherpa would coil the rope. I mean, it was not technical climbing or anything, but he had rope for in case we got into trouble. And he would fold to this, and it would take forever. And it was like, come on. I mean, he wouldn't say it, but I was certainly thinking it. Come on, let's go, let's go. And eventually he would, and off we would go. We have a lovely day and rinse and repeat. But the monsoons came early that year, and we had a 17,000 something or other foot pass to traverse. And it was miserable. I mean, it was freezing. It was the blizzard conditions. It was just, and it was um, had not been anticipated. And at that point, there's not a lot of oxygen. You're not feeling well. You're exhausted. You have to keep going. In this case, a mountain pass, but call it a life challenge. And we needed extra layers. So Kami stopped, and he was pulling from his pack the extra layers that we needed. And I thought, oh, I get it. He didn't have any more brain cells than I did up there. But because the muscle memory was so profound, he had practiced and practiced and practiced at lower altitudes on beautiful sunny days when he would never need any of that equipment. He knew exactly where it was because his hands, knew by muscle memory, as I say. So it was one of those life lessons for me, which is that I agree. When the challenges come, or when things fall apart, or when the crisis arrives, you need to rely on whatever you have chosen to rely on. But I don't think this is true for me. It won't be there unless you've practiced it, right? Unless in the sunnier days and stuff, you've just had whatever your meditation, whatever your workout, prayer thing is, reading inspirational scripture or passages. If it's, you just have to prepare that so that you can be resilient when you need to. It's just filling your bank account. It's keeping your tank full, keeping air in your tires. I mean, look, there are days where I fail to do so, or I do my practice and it doesn't mean anything. It just feels like sawdust. However, I'm pretty good at it, at this point. And so when things hit, I am grateful for whatever reservoir I've been able to build. And had I not, it wouldn't have been there for me. So that's been a real lesson that I've learned the hard way.
Hmm. Hmm. Is this where your reinvention comes in?
Mm. Reinvention. Well, building the festival was certainly reinvention. I never saw myself. I mean, it was a 501, not for profit 501c3. We had to have a board. It's like, what's a board? What's a 501c3? So, no, I think that's what I learned. I mean by reinvention. is just to be willing when you don't know to ask. Say you don't know. People are so willing to help if you say, I don't know what I'm doing here. To people smarter and wiser in that particular field, people are willing more often than not. And if the first
It's
person,
also it's also
Mhm.
being authentic too, though, right? Like
You
that's
bet,
where,
you bet.
being humble and getting out of our own way. I mean, yesterday I had a situation, and I was producing something, and I said, I was accused of something that wasn't correct, and I said, quite frankly speaking, and no disrespect, I would own my mistake. If I made a mistake, I would much rather correct it and stay out of my own way, because
Mhm,
that way I won't repeat it for next time. And
mhm.
there's no ego. I think that we all have to keep everything in check and balances,
Oh,
right?
ego. What a bear. Yeah. Ego's huge.
Ego's huge. It's like, how on
Mm.
earth do you find that balance of confidence, self-care, self-love, without the portrayal of having an ego? But then we need to have that in order to set boundaries. Do you find
Well,
that?
I think you answered your own question with that great word to be authentic, and
Mm,
vulnerable. It's the human condition to fail and screw up. And so everybody does it more than once. So,
right. But don't you find now in your experiences as you evolve that do you find that you care less? I mean, yes, in your industry, but to be honest, what I witness with you is you're a
mm.
very down to earth, approachable, lovely human being. And
Aw, thanks.
acting and singing is just what you do to provide your lifestyle, but also follow your passion. And with that has also created your circle of friends and your
For
trusted
sure.
confidants and
Oh gosh, yes. Yeah.
right. So would you find that the older, and I'm sorry, I don't mean to make it age, the more experience you have
Yeah, more
as
experience.
we evolve, thank you. Like age is nothing.
Mm.
As we evolve, we
Mhm.
learn our boundaries, and it's really the people in our circle who matter more. Do you find that?
Yes. Oh, yes. I mean, I one of the great treasures of my life besides family is our friendships. And now, folks that I've known for several decades, and we've borne witness to the many chapters of each other's lives. So, yeah, that's where things don't need translation. I have a core group of girlfriends from middle school, high school, and we get together every couple of years for a long weekend, and we compare life notes. And it's we know each other on a different level, having kind of put on the public mask together. We formed our values together. We talked about our life plans and ambitions and together. And if we don't even remember the specifics of it, the tone of it has carried on all through all these decades. So it's a real it's a huge treasure. Yeah.
That's wonderful. So we have 5 minutes left, and I
Okay.
know that you're in the UK, and
Mm.
sometimes I hesitate in talking live about shows because you don't want to timestamp it, but I want to support you, right? So right
Yes.
now you're in the K, you're doing Catch Me If You Can, and you're with Patrick and you're with Gray.
Mhm.
And tell us a little bit about that. And then in closing, I would like for you to talk to us about your album that I'll put in
Okay.
the yeah, I'll put it in the credits where people can find it. So you're an amazing singer. I was listening to it. I love your tone. I mean, that's kind of one of those where I could picture myself in a lounge with my glass
There
of
it is.
wine, and yeah.
Mm.
So those two things, and then we'll wrap up because I know you got to go.
Always loved music. I got to do musicals as a kid, and I would say that was a kind of reinvent because living in LA, I then working in Hollywood, I wasn't being able to do musicals on stage, so that led to just starting to do cabaret concerts, and it was never from a point of view of a career thing. It was just for the joy of it. But now it has become a career thing. Before COVID, about once a month, I'd go out somewhere, anywhere, and do a concert, sometimes internationally, but travel for a weekend or so and do a concert with my fabulous music director, jazz pianist Ted Firth, brilliant. Um, so that was, a reinvent. What we're doing now is this play. It's a chestnut of a murder mystery. It was on Broadway and I think the West End in the '60s. And this is a play. It's a cast of 7. We rehearsed for 3 weeks. And then the madness of it is from now until July, we're going to be doing 1 theater a week in the UK, going to Belfast and Cardiff and Blackpool, all the pools, Liverpool and Bath and stuff. So if you're in the UK, come find us somewhere. But so it's an adventure. It's daunting. It's exhausting, but exhilarating. We're going to be learning a lot. And, we just have to gear up and keep in good shape and healthy to do this. I really admire Patrick for being willing to do this. He hasn't been on stage in 22 years, so he's willing to, that's another word that's kind of big for me, is just to be willing. You never know how it's gonna work, but just be willing every once in a while to jump off the high dive.
That's cool.
So yeah, catch me if you can in the UK tour 2022.
Starting February 8th, I believe, is what we talked about. Yes.
Belfast. It'll be freezing. I mean, today, literally, I wore everything you saw, plus my overcoat and a hat, and I was okay. So, and
I don't know. I'm Canadian, so.
Okay, you probably would have been fine, but I feel so weedy. I'm hoping my blood will change and it'll thicken and I'll be okay.
But one of the things I think I recall in one of the meetings we were on, what I found very intriguing, because I remember, gosh, when there were actors who were not allowed to do commercials and weren't allowed to do print ads, or, it was so taboo. It was way before this time where now everybody gets paid for their branding. Mm-hmm. And now it's a cool thing called a triple threat. And then you're actually in the minority if you don't have more than one talent, or you couldn't have the crossover of TV and movie and stage. And so was it a time when you experienced that interest back in Broadway, or wanting to explore that? Did you find that you had any challenges making the crossover from TV to stage, or, in the industry, or you just went for it?
For myself, well, there's show and there's business. So from the show point of view, no, I'd always, since a kid growing up in Japan, I started working there and always did film, TV, and theater. So that balance has always been, since I was 11, it's been a part of the mix. The business side, your agents hate it because you make no money in theater. Like, really? You're going to go off and do a play for 6 months? But bless my agents, they've put up with me for this long. So they just sort of get, that's what I need. I have to do that. I have to keep a balance. I look at Hugh Jackman. I mean, he's had this glorious, stellar, fabulous movie star who can also sing, who can also do straight plays, who can also dance. And he's lucky that he has had continues to have the great success to use all of his talents. But, you and I probably both know a lot of people who don't have a chance to express those talents. And I think it's important, for all of us, that whatever they are, that at whatever scale you live an expressed life. I mean, I think that's our responsibility to the best of our ability to live, as full a life as we dare, as we can. And,
I love the art of reinvention, because in my other life, that's how I equate it. In my other life, I was actually a dance choreographer. So my mom had put me in dancing when I was 3, and that just evolved up to that. And that allowed me to explore my creative side. But I'm very much a business person and very much all those other different things. But that's how I understand, like, the entertainment world and that the challenging part of it, and how, you always have to study your craft and be on top of that. And, and I just respect it tremendously, having taken acting as well. Gosh, I don't know how y'all remember all the script and everything, but
sometimes we don't. Believe me, you just want to make things up and keep going. Oh yeah.
Yeah. Good improv. So on a final note, can you please tell me about what inspired you for your song and for your album? I find it's called Taking a Chance on Love. And I read that, and again, I've had a few divorces. Not gonna lie. So, I just think
Me
that's
too.
why
I'm really
your
proud.
relationship again inspires me, because I think, you know what, don't ever give up. You never
That's
know
right.
where, yeah,
Never give up. Never,
you never ever
mhm,
know where or
never.
who. Just just keep doing your thing. So it inspires me. And so when I read your song and I heard your song in the album,
Mhm.
was that inspired by that at all? Or was that like when you wrote it,
No,
what?
it wasn't, but it's kind
No?
of weird because I had just got to a point sort of in my own prayer work, spiritual, whatever, that the theme of it, not that anybody, but since you've asked, not that anybody would know this, but my sort of impetus behind this CD was like, the theme of the album was, okay, so they say in the books and the scriptures stuff, they say, have a dream and then it will manifest. It's like, well, really? So I wanted to put it to the test. And what is that? What is a dream? So with the songs on the CD, I sort of like to explore, well, how do you define the dream? What if it gets realized and it's the wrong dream? What if the dream gets realized and then it falls apart, and then what? So it was just exploring that concept of, can dreams come true? So taking a chance on love was very much that. It's like, just try it. Or there's a song, Try Your Wings, which is, again, just take flight, and we don't know. But if you don't know, you will fail 100% of the time, right? So but if you have a go, like the British like to say, there's a really good chance that things will align. Maybe not in the way that you intended, maybe not in the time schedule that you intended, but something, energy begets energy, and something good will come of it if you set about with that intention. And there's I'm shooting high, or lucky dream, or I have dreamed. So anyway, that was sort of the theme. And then, wouldn't you know, that after the CD was done and after it was released, here comes Patrick. So I don't know. Maybe it all was of a piece. I'll never know.
It was the universe going, here you go. Linda, you are an absolute delight. I respect your
Thank
time
you.
tremendously. I know that you have another appointment.
Mhm.
I just want to send you across the pond some virtual hugs and kisses, and
Thanks very much. Stay
thank you.
well and start dancing.
Okay. All right. To everybody, please follow Linda on Instagram and her Facebook. Also, her album is available. We're going to put it in the credits for you all. And her album is also available in all the different places where you can find it for streaming. Linda, you've been an absolute honor. Thank you for
Thank you.
providing your insight on inspiring change.
Thank you,
Take
dear.
care, everybody. Bye.